2026 Fisheries Committee meeting. We're going to do things slightly out of order here on the agenda, which is not uncommon for us. We'll start with the pledge tonight. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a quick note, attendance will be next, but after attendance, we're gonna move new business up to the top because Selectman Gilly has another meeting he needs to get to, so. When we do the attendance tonight, could you please give a brief background of your related fisheries, and why you're on this committee? As we have a special guest tonight, Commissioner Wilson from the DMR is here. So we'll start with David.
Evening, Dave Wilson, shellfish harvester and dabble in aquaculture.
Samantha Bohan, and I have an oyster farm.
Jay McCrate, former legislator and non-fisherman, and take the notes.
Allison Hawks, fishing family. My husband and I own a lobster wharf, and my husband's a fisherman, my two sons are fishermen.
Did I hear you're opening up a restaurant here?
Yeah, Sunday.
Season?
Yep,
It's here?
it's here. Yep.
Seth Walker, commercial fished in this town for lobsters and scallops since '95. That's about it.
George Prince, inshore lobster, also Zone F Lobster Council and NEFSA Board of Directors.
Billy Saxton, I own a marina in town, and I'm a member of the Harbor and Waterfront Committee.
Rob Burnett, first seiner, town netter, since 1986.
Matt Gilly, one of the town selectmen and also a lobster fisherman.
Darcy Kuchar, I'm the town liaison for the committee as the harbor master, and in my other side of life, I also do run an oyster farm in Harpswell.
I guess we'll leave you to introduce yourself until
You can have my seat when you
call you
come
up
here.
on the agenda.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I'm leaving.
So, Matt, you
Yeah.
got some new business for us?
I got a couple things actually for you guys. The sign that you guys okayed has been approved by the select board. The price tag for both of them is $600. If you guys wanted to start fundraising, the board is okay with that, and then we can get them ordered and get them up by the beginning of the summer.
That's for two sides?
Yes,
That's awesome.
yeah, for both sides, one at the 24 and one at the 123 side, and they'll be permanent. The only added expenditure we may have going forward is where we talked about adding buoys. You know, we'll have to get a couple wooden buoys or even regular buoys and paint them ourselves. I'm sure that's something this committee can handle just
I don't
fine.
know if there's any extra buoys.
I might have a couple.
Matt, how can people donate? Just to the town with a memo?
Yeah, yep, that will be fun. Just put a memo for a new sign, and you can give it to Tina, and we can just, Katie Neal, our recreation director, is in touch with Carrot Signs, and we'll get the money to her to pay Carrot Signs.
So can we ask Katie to do an announcement in the paper that we're collecting money and to send it to the town?
Yeah, or I can maybe we can do it on the Facebook page.
I mean, wherever we do it would be good. I don't
Yeah.
think it'll take us long.
I don't either. That's the only reason I said the Facebook page is because I think by the time we get it in the paper, we're gonna have the money,
Sure.
honestly.
Yeah.
We'll pay for one sign.
Well, now we only need $300.
That's nice.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
I'm
It's,
not-
I want the one on the next side, the
Oh,
122
of course
sign.
you do. Yeah.
Just to clarify.
No favoritism.
If you're
Well,
paying-
he can
I'll
have
pick
that
the sign
sign, but
this
I'll
side.
pick out the best one for the 24 side.
Billy?
There's a new committee that's been formed as well. It's the Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee. And there are two sections in the comprehensive plan that pertain to the marine economy and marine resources. And we're trying to pull 5 members from different committees, and it would be nice if we could have somebody apply from this committee. And I also mentioned it to the Harbor and Waterfront Committee. It'd be nice to have some input from a fisherman on that new committee. Also, Harpswell Aging at Home reached out with a weird request for the meals in a pinch, kind of, and I told them I would bring it to the committee. They are looking for 25 to 30 fish heads and racks. They don't want the fillets, they just want the racks, and they want to use it to make stock for a soup. So does anybody on this committee have the ability to? Yeah, that's what I told him. I said, I can give you some pogies and some rotten herring, but I don't think you want that.
Mackerel, maybe? I don't know.
Does anybody have access to that?
Jerry'd probably be the best bet.
I don't know.
Or cantrowels.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. I can reach out to Cantrell's and see, and then I'll get them in touch with. Does somebody
Happy to donate some of
Does
that
somebody
stuff.
else want to reach out to Cantrell's for me, to be honest? I got a lot going on.
I'll do it, because I have to reach out for an order anyway.
All right, and just, Katie can coordinate picking it up with them and stuff. If they have it, just find out when it's best for her to pick it up, and she can run up and grab it and get it over to the people at Hall. And the last thing is Holly Parker at Bowdoin College. She runs the Schiller Center. She reached out to me. She's having an intern coming this summer that is looking to interview fishermen for a research project they're doing. And she was wondering, excuse me, if we would mind if that student came and talked to us at the next meeting for probably 20 to 30 minutes and just asked us a few questions. It wouldn't be any personal information or anything like that. I can get some kind of generic questions that might be asked and forward them to the committee if that's something they may be interested in.
I would say of course, but I don't know how you guys feel.
Fine.
I'm on board.
Fine with everyone? All right, I'll reach out. And I've worked with her before. I know you've worked with her too, David, haven't you? She's great to work with, and she's definitely, the Schiller Center seems to be helping out with some stuff with the fisheries. Yeah, that's all I got. That's all you guys know.
I got one quick one.
Oh.
David especially, I just talked to the folks at Blue Sond, and our monitoring buoy is going to be ready to pick up next week, so I'm going to go grab that, and
Yep.
we'll get that one deployed, and then the one that Damian Brady and Maine Aquaculture Innovation Center are sponsoring are still in production, but they should be ready in a couple of weeks. So we'll have all that stuff in the water and have that little mini chlorophyll carrying capacity study going in just a few weeks.
Also, on that note, thank you for reminding me, I've reached out, there may be some funding available from the Maine Coast Fishermen's Association to purchase an additional buoy, so I'm working with them to see if they can help us purchase an additional, one of those Blue Sand buoys, so we may end up with an extra one here shortly.
Awesome.
That's good news,
Good
thank
job,
you
guys.
guys.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Big deal.
Yeah.
All right.
Was that the
That was it.
committee announcements as well?
Yeah, that was the
Darcy?
committee, the new
Okay.
committee is the committee announcement, so.
Okay.
Look
Can
at
we
that.
approve the minutes real quick from last meeting?
I didn't get any changes, so everybody's okay with them.
I make a motion, we approve.
Second.
I actually read them this time. ahead of time.
Good job, George.
Can we get approval?
Guess we need to show of hands, yeah.
You're supposed to say all those in favor.
Okay.
George. That's you, we're waiting. on
Thank you. Thank you.
The eyeballs are looking.
You, George.
Thanks for keeping me straight, guys. Okay, without further ado. So I think what we're trying to achieve here is to form a bridge with the DMR from this committee to answer questions.
And to
Oh.
work with DMR.
Yeah, obviously, we can't just start rapid firing questions tonight, we understand that. But maybe we could talk about policy a little bit and possibly create some sort of a network where we can send emails and who to talk to. Because all too often we have conversations here and they always end with, well, that's the question for DMR. And we can't give applicants answers, unfortunately, or we come to roadblocks. So I think we certainly have plenty of questions, but I think if we could hammer that out at the very least.
And I'm just gonna add, there's other areas, like we've started with these Blue Sound buoys doing some monitoring, and I'm sure the state would be interested in some of that information. And we're trying to figure out ways to kind of, I guess, partner with the state, share some of this information, maybe share funding as well, and kind of accomplish goals that we both have, and create somewhat of a partnership with you guys, because we've been pretty effective in our short tenure as a committee so far. And I think I've heard from you yourself that you've noticed some of the things we've done, so I think there's a bridge there that we can build to get more done, and that's what we're hoping to accomplish.
Maybe just to kind of riff a little bit on what Matt just kind of queued up. So I've been in the commissioner's position for a year now. It's a steep learning curve, and it continues to be. Every day is a new adventure.
Marianne's gonna make you take the mic, because we record the
I
meeting.
got it, Marianne.
Just give him the.
Yeah, there's a
Yep.
handheld, yeah. give him
I
that
can
one.
see you're getting up
coming.
behind you in the window there.
Everyone knows that look. Yeah.
So I have a question. Are we being recorded,
Yes.
obviously? Or, okay.
Yeah.
It's, I
And
think,
is it
streamed
live,
on-
or-
No,
You-
it's not live.
Is it live, Marianne?
No.
It's on
No,
social media, and
They edited it because sometimes
Right,
we
and-
say foul things, I think.
you
So,
should
if
know.
I start to get in trouble, I should just start swearing?
Yeah,
profusely?
I should,
Right now, yeah.
Okay, okay.
I should, look how blue that bird
Okay.
is. So, I should warn you, we have a following of about 3 members on social media.
Okay.
So be very careful with your wording.
Okay.
You don't want to lose the 3 people we have.
Yeah, exactly.
We worked
Well-
hard to get him.
Okay, so, yeah, so I've been in this position for a year now. Prior to that, my background is, I grew up in Maine. I grew up in Old Town. And my father was actually a faculty member at the University of Maine. He did marine policy. Darcy.
I had him.
Darcy was in some of his classes, or at least one, I think. And actually, he came to Maine. He and my mom came in '68, and Harpswell was the first town they worked in. He was a marine policy guy, economist, and he worked with a gentleman named Bob Green. And that was like in 1970 or so. And at that time, they were interviewing fishermen up and down the coast about lobsters. And they actually, when I first started with the department, I came across a document that they had put together, and it's from 1973, where they kind of compiled all these interviews that they had, and people were, surprise, at that time, talking about trap limits and zones and all the, kind of things that are still, very much topics for lobsters, were back then as well. And so I kind of grew up in a family where fish was talked about a lot. My sister teaches down at USM as she's a freshwater biologist, but also works on alewives as well. So it's just, I've just kind of grown up in this. I started with the department in '99 as a lobster biologist. I was the lead lobster biologist for 15 years. When I started to be in the same circle, it's like the record was starting to skip on some of the lobster stuff. It felt like a good time to move up, and I was promoted up into the Bureau of Marine Science to lead our overall marine science program. So it's kind of everything but public health and aquaculture. And did that for 10 years, and then last year I've been commissioner when Commissioner Kelleher stepped down. And so, again, my background is more on the science side. Some of the work that I did when I was working on lobsters was very cooperative research focused. So we set up a whole series of different monitoring programs, trying to go soup to nuts for lobsters. Tried when I moved into bureau director, I tried to kind of bring that same kind of ethics of I think that the department has to work very closely with fishermen, and I have a strong belief that I'm a trained ecologist, and that's a lot of, that training says you observe and you make hypotheses and you make decisions based on the results of your experiments that you do. I have a firm belief that that's kind of like what fishing is. You have 800 traps in the water. Every one of them is their own experiment that you come back and are making your next decision on. And so, anyways, I just, that's just part of who, my upbringing and this professional work has been around that. So where Matt started going off, and I'm sorry, I'm just gonna like ramble
Go
on some
right
of this
ahead.
stuff, so you guys can stop me and come in at any time. But I think Matt and I first interacted in the depths of the pandemic for offshore wind conversation. And that was a really hard conversation for the department to have. It put us in a really awkward position. And we were getting challenged significantly by industry, to say the least. And what was interesting, and I'll just compliment Matt on this, is that yes, there was direct no, but there was also substance behind it, the reasons why, and engagement behind that. And then, whether it be Jerry Lehman and, kind of getting NEFSA going, and how that has kind of come onto the scene, or, in the last year, hearing a little bit more about, I believe this committee has been working on the aquaculture fisheries siting maps.
Yep.
And so I think there is something going on in Harpswell right now that is very interesting to me. I'm curious on, the origins of this committee. Not many other towns have something similar to this. And I think you guys, from what I've seen, Allison's organized a group that came up and talked with me. I know George was there, and Matt as well, and I forget your name, Mr. Wilson, your first name. David. I do remember the last name. And, I think that when communities are coming forward and engaging in the conversations and tackling some of the hardest questions that we have on the coast, that's something that I'm interested in. So I have just as many questions for you guys as maybe you do for me. So anyways, maybe a little bit of look forward. I think it's no surprise to anyone sitting around your horseshoe that we are in an exceptional time for fisheries, for the coast of Maine, and we are probably at or near a tipping point for the decisions, and the approach that we take right now are going to have generational impacts for our communities. I feel it myself personally. I lived in Booth Bay for 15 years, and we ended up moving out of Booth Bay up into Alna, so 15 miles, 10 miles north of Route 1. One, it was affordable. Two, the school system in Booth Bay was declining rapidly. When we moved there in 2001, it was like 250, 300 kids in the high school. It was going to be down to 125, and it's now below 100 when our kids would have been entering high school. And so we made that decision as a personal decision of, okay, here is an affluent peninsula. It's not just a community, it's a peninsula, multiple communities that are choosing, to approach, schools a little bit differently. They had, that's a peninsula that has Bigelow Lab, the DMR, Coast Guard, Washburn and Dougherty, and Booth Bay Harbor as a active community. And essentially it was, for families, it was a dying community in many ways. ways in that people were just moving off the peninsula. And quite frankly, hundreds of people commute onto the peninsula to the jobs where at one point they were staying in those communities. No one can compete with people buying their second or third home. And so, I feel like those changes personally, in that I was, one of those people that moved off the peninsula. But I think that relates back to fisheries, in that there are very few places on the coast where fishermen or women, compete with those that may want to purchase that waterfront or coastal community land. NOAA does an annual state of the ecosystem report, and one aspect of that is federal permits by zip code. And Maine's federal permits are all dotted for the most part on coastal towns. South of Massachusetts and Massachusetts, those dots are reflected in towns on the main highways leading away from the coast. So you see these arteries, just stretching out rather than the dots going along like they have in Maine. And I think that's exactly what's happening here. It's just we're a couple decades behind, in that this pressure, the housing pressure is going to transform, and maybe it already is what's happening in Harpswell as well. And so that's why I think we're kind of on this really important period of time where gentrification, climate change, everything is just kind of all in the mix right now. And we're struggling with resources too. So.
You're the chair.
George.
Okay.
Where do you want to go?
Are you up for a couple questions?
Let's go.
I know, well, we'll just start on the end and we'll go around. I know Allison has one for you and Seth. But David, if you have anything, go ahead.
Yeah, this is on, correct? Yeah.
You'll get the
Well,
look if not.
Yeah, again, thank you for coming. I got on the Marine Resource Committee in 2008 or 9. I figured I owed it to the community because I've gotten where I am through the resources in this town. And when I decided to get into aquaculture, well, let me start by this whole group, we started in reflection to the uptick in aquaculture. West of us, I see a lot of towns where there is aquaculture approved and placed in an existing fishery. And unfortunately, the department doesn't provide a map showing applicants, where existing fisheries lie. My experience with the marine resource over the years is got a lot to do with water quality. We spent a number of years, my wife and I, just trying to find pollution sources, I think that's the best a municipal town could do with their resources, to try to open their waters, clean their waters. When I started aquaculture, I spent 2 years trying to find spots, even though I've been in the town for over 20 years and thought I knew where all these fisheries took place. It took me 2 years to find out that I was wrong. The spots I picked are out of the way. They don't reflect any other fisheries. And I feel that the department should take more consideration into that. And over the time I've spent working with the marine resources and trying to get some of our closed grow areas open up, I realize how fragile that is, and how even a shore that has 4 to 6 knots of tide running by it, you could see geese frequent it 2 weeks out of the year, and we lose that grow area for up to 6-8 months while those are there. And it's hard for me to wrap my mind around the department doesn't consider that when you have an abundance of Top Gear promoting waterfowl that's creating abnormal levels of fecal coliform in that water. personal goal, I mean, I know we all have goals in this committee, but my personal goal, because I've been trying for 2 years, is to get the department to recognize that. It has, it has a lot to do with, carrying capacity and scale of the aquaculture. There's large scale and small scale. I think that scale should be compatible to the body of water that lease is in, and the geographic makeup of the bottom of that. Another thing I'd really personally like to see the department recognize and consider is constricted currents. I'm not a biologist, but I have been on water long enough to know that certain times of the year, everything that starts out platonic, all these marine species, they do favor the first, top water column where it's warmer and where you'll find more chlorophyll. When it comes to the placement of top culture, I think that there should be more consideration in that, so it doesn't, namely, impede those constricted currents. Every bay, every cove has what I would call a constricted current. You'll see a little more volume of water come into that bay or into that cove. Some of them have defined channels, some of them don't. But I think my goal would be to see the department, just recognize that and put a little more consideration in that when it comes to approving leases. And again, to see how fragile our grow areas are and to see how easily they can be closed, and it could take up to 6 years to get that open back up unless we want to apply ourselves and try to focus, find out where the pollution source is, ask for accelerated sampling. I feel those standards should apply to floating aquaculture. If it's promoting abnormal levels of birds and abnormal levels of fecal coliform in that water, then based off public health, why wouldn't the department want to do so? That's personally my goal as a fisherman and as an aquaculturist. I don't know how it's better to explain myself, but I do want to give thanks to everybody up here, because boy, this has been a long road. And just getting the department to honor and recognize existing fisheries is just, it's mind-blowing to me, that we've got this far. And
Does this committee take up every pre-application that comes across? Are you guys
We have a sample of our map that we created behind you as well. I'm gonna take off.
Yeah, we do. We've been working towards, voluntarily having them come see us, just to help them before they actually submit and pay the fee. 'Cause once they're in the channel, they're kind of locked in. So
Right.
we've managed to get a lot of people before they hit that and adjust them a little bit. And I think it's been successful for a lot of them to pick a better spot. We were behind the request to get the experimental leases to fall in line with the same procedures as the other ones, to have a meeting at the town prior to an application. And for exactly the reason, this was the case, we had I'll zoom in on this one. These colors represent distant fisheries. This is a European oyster bed, the purple here, and before, it just came in right before the law got signed in that experimental aquaculture permits should come talk to the town first. This guy had done it before that was in place. So he's already in the pipeline. He'd already paid his fee, had his application, and came to us, and he wanted to put this 4-acre farm right on top of our European oyster bed, where literally 2 or 3 months before that, we had another LPA applicant come to us before submitting his proposal, looking to sit on that same spot, and we were like, look, that's not a great spot, and here's why. And then he ended up moving up to Birch Island and placed it up there. So that we considered a success. That's the point, is trying to help,
Yeah.
tweak it a little bit. But with people not understanding the complex nature of the fisheries in Harpswell, they're coming in blind almost. So we were hopeful that we could just be part of that very, very initial process. And so far, it's been, I think, a success.
So when, just to hang a little bit on this before the department even receives the application, just hang on that, but then I also want to come back to the top culture, floating bags, I think is, just want to, I don't want to forget that part of the point, but, as we've talked about this within the department, creating maps like this for the entire coast, would be a big undertaking, whether it be for the department or for whoever might do it. But knowing that Harpswell has done this and that you guys are actively involved in kind of the pre-application phase of this, this is a huge help because you're actually making, quite frankly, making our job much easier because you're getting that on the ground input right off the bat, and I think it's a better outcomes for everybody, just as you said, Darcy. So I think this is a great step. Senator Rennie had a bill that I think she kind of tabled it in the end. But you're not alone in the conversation of wanting to have maps, to help guide. We feel if you guys have used those maps and the town is submitting comments, Harbor Master is submitting comments based on those maps, then that's a really effective use of that resource. So it's not the department using that map, it is the town using that map to help make recommendations, but the end result is the same. And as far as top culture goes, as I understand it, not an aquaculturist, but as I've come to understand that there is a return on the investment for aquaculturists that are putting oysters or other shellfish on surface cultures. It's warmer, they grow faster. There's a business side to it. And then the couple instances of Campylobacter over the last 2 years or so, I think up in
Freeport.
Mirror Point, is it? No, not Mirror Point.
Main Ocean Farms. Yep.
Right, okay, that's, I think that's, it highlights the concern that you have of, are there impacts, are, the unintended consequences of trying to do what's best for an aquaculture business of saying, I need to try to optimize, my return here. Is it having kind of unintended consequences of either, potential public health issues or potential, bird attraction that then has, kind of one of these unintended consequences of closing flats or something like that, just to kind of carry that theme. Damien Brady at the University of Maine is working with the department to try to, understand some of the, kind of the small scale current flows around that, understand how bird, feces kind of gets moved through and how long, if you've got a sink gear for, I think there's a time period, I'm gonna say 7 days or a week or, not sure what the recommendation is to kind of sink gear before harvesting. But yeah, it's a very big issue.
Yeah, top culture has its place, there's no denying that. But I think that, these topics are things to consider. Working on the farm, every year we'd have to reserve 2 or 3 days just to pressure wash bird feces off our float and our gear. And I know that if that was a shore, a grow area here in Harpswell, and there was, a P90 station, close by, we would lose it. And, at 36 consecutive samples, that takes 6 years if you're just gonna sit back and hope that pollution source goes away. And I wish, I can't tell you how much I wish the department would just recognize that. And when you have a certain volume of top gear and you're promoting a certain volume of birds,
do you have a suggestion, David?
P90 stations.
We,
slow down.
well,
Or from the gear perspective?
Implement a testing station, stay on top of that.
we tried to go for a grant to buy an IDEX setup to basically do it would do the equivalent of giving us the coliform scores that you guys have at the labs, not for regulatory purposes, but at least to give us an idea. And we wanted to have, it's a really basic setup that you can run simply here on site, and we wanted enough consumables so that we could do a whole season and target surface aquaculture of different densities where we knew birds landed. We did not get funded, but that's the kind of work we want to do, to collect the data to determine, is it a problem? Where is it a problem? How, what's the tripping point? So it's frustrating that we would like to do the work. We know what we need to do, but there's not enough resources for us to make it happen right now.
Also to that point though, it shouldn't have, I don't feel like it should get to us to do that. I feel like before the licenses become, that's DMR's. That's where it should start, is with you guys, where I've, been dealing in the fisheries industry for a long time, and we have so much on us all the time of the things that we have to follow, and, when you're just talking even about the economic thing of why they grow oysters that way, well, we know why would they do, but maybe I'd like to put 400 more traps in the water, but we can't, because it has an impact, right? So that's exactly what we're asking, is just, I want it to be equal, and I don't feel like it's equal. I feel like it's just been this, fisheries has slowed down, and the licenses aren't being given out, right? Everything's slowed down a lot, we're losing a lot of fishermen, and now we had this new resource, and we're like, we've made new fishermen, and we just boomed it, and we didn't really even think about the impacts that it was gonna have on all the other fisheries, or boaters, or any of the other stuff, so that, it's like DMR kind of put the cart before the horse, of like, we have to do all these things to make sure that we stay, not destroying the industry and destroying the resource. And then oyster fishing just came in, and it was like, it just kind of went nuts. And now we're like backtracking to the impact of it.
So this is one of the backing up from that specific, issue, Allison. This is one of the reasons that I'm kind of curious to talk with you guys, because I think this committee doesn't have to be just a fisherman, like taking on the burden of trying to investigate whatever it is. There is something with this group that you guys are mustering, more than just an individual's, persistence in seeing a particular issue through for decades. You're kind of talking about it in the public sphere, which is, it's a very different approach.
Well, one of the reasons that it was so important for me to have this committee, and why I asked for this committee, is because when I sit at this table, and it might even sound corny, I even get a little like electric excited, because these are super smart people around this horseshoe. Like, I'm amazed by the people that sit here. That map that's Chinese to me, as far as I'm concerned. I don't understand a lot of that, and we have people on here that do and make that stuff happen. That's not my forte. We all have different things that we bring to this group, and that's why we're where we are. It's because we're smart. But my biggest thing that I go back to is that I'm tired of fishermen being looked down upon. I'm tired of us being looked at that we are uneducated, because we feed other people. We feed the nation. We feed the world. And just like you were saying, is that every one of these guys does science experiments every single day in their jobs, and probably know more than most people sitting with those degrees. And just because he doesn't have a degree, even he just said it, well, that's all that I do. No, you provide delicious food that I consume that a lot of people wouldn't have without him. Does anybody know how to catch scallops? No, but Seth does. But the thing is because he doesn't have a degree a lot of times, we've been looked down on for decades. And I've sat in tons of rooms to know that happens all the time, that we are looked at as not having an education, and it's just a different education. It doesn't have a degree behind it. And that's why I have been so adamant in fighting and fishing, is because when my husband speaks, I'm like, it just is it amazes me what he knows about the things going on in the ocean that no one will ever know unless they did what he did. And in all the seasons of the year, you know, so I get tired of watching these men that have put everything into, you know, from watching my sons do it, from watching everything, learning how to fish and lobsters, and then people are like, you don't know what you're talking about. I have a degree. I'm smarter than you. They're not. And I think that there's something that can be worked out where people that do have those degrees could be working with teams of people like this, and we could really be making something great. I mean, Maine is amazing at what it can offer in the coastline, and we waste it. I feel like we waste it. So that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm at a lot of the fishing stuff that I do, because every one of those people, including the other people that I work with NESFA, amaze me. You know, they have a lot to add to this that is just discarded a lot.
Can I asking Ellison a question? The department has advisory councils, aquaculture, lobster, but that's not sufficient to what
They're
you're
not
saying.
listened, it doesn't matter. A lot of the times that those things, people don't come to them, they're not set at times that fishermen go,
Yeah.
you know.
Or
people-
they're down east.
Yeah, or they're just.
Like the Scallop Advisory Council meetings, they're all in Sorrento.
So there's something different here.
Well, and different here, because with new leadership, and I've gotten to work with Carl over the time and listen to him, that he is a team player. We are at a pivotal time to be working with our leadership to
Yeah.
work as a team and not feel like it's always like, you're doing this wrong, you know? So it's,
And most
We are.
meetings are at 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
yeah.
And when you're 2 hours away, so I gotta stop working at noon to get to a meeting. That's just like us losing 95% of our Scallop bottom this year. You guys shut us down. You issued 3 new licenses this year. You issued more last year. The last 4 years, a bunch of guys have rigged up. I don't know. A lot of times I feel like we're not listened to at all. But we gotta report every day what we do.
I can attest that at times I wish I wasn't a harvester, because it's been, 4 or 5 years ago, I was just labeled a disgruntled harvester. It's like, man, I love aquaculture. I couldn't ask more from it. The things I learned, I've implemented it into Harpswell's management program with our own shellfish industry, and we've learned so much. But like, I know it's not a hypothesis when it's all about the location of every lease and the body of water it sits in, and where these constricted currents that hold, you know, a good percentile of that platonic life while it's in that stage. There's plenty of studies out there, and I've read many that were published and was told those were anecdotal studies. I don't know. It just, there's things that the department really needs to consider. Like, we're gonna start a carrying capacity this year in Middle Bay. It's something that should have taken place long before, you know, applications were being approved. And, you know, along with carrying capacity, you know, fecal coliform plays a big role in carrying capacity, and it worries me. You know, in 2022, we were on the farm and we had that algae bloom. We were the 3rd year of the drought, the worst drought that Maine's experienced in a long time. But yet we had an algae bloom, and I mean, mathematically, it takes a hard rainfall to trigger an algae bloom. Just so happens where those algae blooms stemmed from, it happened to have been on a larger scale, you know, floating aquaculture farm there. You have to ask yourself if that, you know, had by any chance played a role in the time it takes from that pseudo feces to rest on that bottom. Did that play a role in combination with the temperature of the water and the lack of oxygen? I mean, and that's something that, I mean, I had 4 million soft shell. I had big investment I lost in like 4 nights, 4 days. Big, serious investment lost because of that algae bloom. And it's still, I have unanswered questions. And I don't know, I feel strongly that that was brushed under the rug. And, You know, since then, I've stepped away from dumping my, you know, everything I have in an investment like that, because, you know, our ocean has the final say. And I feel that some of the department, you know, some the policies shouldn't be based off feasibility for the applicant. It should be based off the ecological response we're gonna see from every area that's taking place in. If you can understand what I'm
Yeah,
trying to
yeah, so,
explain.
I mean, there's criteria for siting.
Yeah,
And that's, you know, it's, you know, signed a lease today, you know, that was reviewing those criteria.
Yeah.
You know, do the municipalities, you know, submit a, you know, a comment, you know, that's all part of the process, but I would think that if, this is a speculation, but if you feel that maybe your comments were brushed off by the department, I would hope it's because they were trying to evaluate your comments relative to the selection, you know, the criteria
yeah,
that that we're legally obligated to use. And so if there was some other criteria that is in your mind of, like, that might be like a broad application for the state, then that's something to talk about. But I certainly wouldn't feel confident in being able to understand what, you know, the specifics of what you're saying. I'm just trying to generalize. What I'm hearing is that there may have been frustration on what the criteria were for evaluating that lease application.
yeah,
I think that maybe what makes our committee unique is that all of these people with all this experience and all of these concerns, we're not just trying to meet to complain about them, we're trying to figure out, all right, here's an issue, how are we gonna try and problem solve that? That was the genesis of the maps, to map out where do we fish? Well, let's map it out and have that piece of information. That's why we're doing the work with the blue sand buoys this year. That's why we tried to get the grant money to do the fecal coliform testing. We're goal-oriented to figure out what do we need to do to make the system better, and I think
And
that's,
connect with our community better. Yeah.
we're trying.
Well, again, I would just say, I see you. Because there is something going on here that does provide a different voice than a fisherman showing up and saying, I'm not being heard because I don't have a degree behind my name, or whatever it is. There is, I think, some tangible benefits to what you guys are doing. So when did this start, Allison? It sounded like
Gosh.
you were.
Has it been a year?
August.
Yeah, it's
Well, we
been
started
a year.
we started the fisheries group beforehand.
Yeah, there was
and
the
then
aquaculture group before that.
Because we did that map.
That was the
A year or two
aquaculture
ago.
working
That was a
group.
couple of years.
Yeah.
I
years
was in the
ago.
aquaculture group, and then the selectmen disbanded that one and made this one.
Yep.
I think it started, I sat down at Jerry's house one day for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And like, I need help. I'm just a harvester and need help. And it went from there, and Jerry's really good at doing what he does, and here we are. Hats
Took
off
it.
to Jerry, that's for sure.
A lot
Took
of
it
our
wharf to
problems
wharf.
is we get too emotional because we're so invested that it would just sound like we're mad. Because we are,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
frustrated. It gets irritating when it doesn't sound like you're listened to.
Yeah.
Ropeless buoys, I mean, I could go on and on. I mean, seriously? That is so not gonna work. Take a ride through any one of these bays in July and August. You could walk across from buoys to buoy. And you're gonna just run gear out with no, I mean, I fished down in Area 1. Anywhere from 60 to 70 fathom.
Yeah.
You're gonna run gear out like that with no buoys on them? I've been dragged off my boat, rode right down my belly, right out the deck.
Do you wanna talk lobsters and whales a little bit.
Well,
We can
we
go
were-
down, we
we
can
were-
go down that. I'm happy to like.
That pretty much
like,
took up the
Well, we
whole
were
meeting.
told that we couldn't ask a whole bunch of questions because so I've been kind of behaving, but once again, it gets frustrating because I dealt with Pat for quite a while and he was pretty good at telling you what you wanted to hear. Whether it left that room afterwards is
Sure,
not really been seen.
sure. Clearly, whales and lobsters are the existential threat to the lobster fishery right now. So, where to begin?
Because I haven't just fished in Area 1 here. I fished with Shafty in Area 3 too.
Yeah,
I mean, I've put some time in offshore and I don't see what they're talking about. I know they're there, but a lot of people think they just travel from Cape Cod to St. Lawrence. They don't even come in our way. You got gear up here in the bays where they got breakaways and markings and, I mean, it goes on and on.
well, okay, so there's a lot to unpack with whales. I would say, let's just deal with, the controversy of the day right now is ropeless gear. And we are nowhere close to application of widespread ropeless gear.
'Cause you guys aren't
And
even
I
gonna-
don't think we're gonna get there.
Because you guys won't be able to enforce anything. How are you ever going to be able to check to see how many traps someone really has in the water?
So, we can maybe take
Yeah.
a whole and say that there's general agreement that we're not anywhere close to ropeless technology being in a way that is reflective of actually being in a commercial situation. Can they get a buoy to the surface? Yes, they can. Can they do it in a way that you know where you're fishing, they're fishing, you're fishing, you're fishing?
No way.
No, and I agree with you there. So let's just put that to the side a little bit and we'll come back to it in a second. Before the legislative pause that passed through the Consolidated Spending Act, Eastern Maine was looking at, in Zone A specifically, was looking at closures to the beach during the months of June, July, and August. That was an unacceptable scenario. Totally unacceptable. If that pause had not gone through, the ways that a fishery continues, and the Endangered Species Act and Marine Mammal Protection Act are powerful federal laws that have not been substantially changed in 50 years that they've been in existence. So we're all responding to very powerful and well-tested federal law. Those were unacceptable cases with the extrapolation of data that from other areas based on habitat, depth, bottom type, blah, 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 without direct observations of were there whales there or not. And so the rationale behind the pause, and this was a major coup. I was down in DC last week talking with all of our congressional delegation, talking with the political side of the administration for the different agencies. This is a big, big deal that Maine got this pause. In getting that pause, that gives us the ability to collect information to understand. As a scientist, I fundamentally disagreed with trying to make decisions that had no direct observations to it. They were just inferences. So it's not even that it's one thing when there's a whale sitting right there and you have to make a decision. It's another thing when you're saying, we think there will be a whale there.
Yeah, because they were
based
using
on
the worst
this.
case scenario.
Yeah.
There's so many different layers to this conversation, but this pause has given us the opportunity to look for whales, and so we had a plane out today, we have a boat out tomorrow, and we have 30-plus passive acoustic monitoring stations out to 50 miles offshore that are listening for whales. We have heard right whales.
I'm not saying they're not there.
Right. And, but I mentioned down east, we're not hearing them close to shore, like out to 12 miles in eastern Maine. That area would have been closed. If the pause had not have been gone through, it would have been closed. That would have shut off all of those communities for fishing in the, when they would catch like 70% of their lobsters. With no information. It's just, that was just an unacceptable position to take. Now we have some information to work with. So that's really helpful. During that pause, the population has gone up, deaths have gone down, and when we had a big ecosystem shift and those whales that very reliably for decades would go to Bay of Fundy, they transit Cape Cod, they go up to the Bay of Fundy, they hang out in, is it Roseway Basin or something like that, just north of Grand Manan there. That pattern changed. 2017 or 2016, they started to go up in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. 2017 is when you heard about all those big mortality events where I think 17 whales were hit by
And that was
ships.
Canada's snow crab gear.
Or snow crab gear, correct. They were not, the whales were not where everyone thought they should have been, right? So Canada was not prepared to do vessel slowdowns. They were not prepared, and they don't have the gear in any way configured that is, whale friendly at all. So, so I think, having a few years to collect data is really important because it is a different pattern than what the assumption said. So how do we go forward in the future? Last winter, we had an aggregation of 96 whales inside of Jeffries, in the basin there. We had planes going overhead with observers on board, a whale and a fisherman setting out gear right next to the whale, like right next to the whale. Not a great look. We also had fishermen, the next flight out, word started to get around, there's a lot of whales around. We also had fishermen calling the plane and saying, hey, I know there's whales here, where do I move my gear? And the observers on the plane had no authority to say, oh, if you just move them over here, you'll be fine, the whales aren't there. That's not a good look.
I wouldn't
either.
think so.
No.
Because we don't want to hurt them.
Exactly. So what that instance, there are so many positive things that happened on Jeffries last winter with that aggregation of whales. The fact that there was an aggregation there, that was a big pucker moment for a lot of people. Because you guys have trackers on, we were able to draw a box around the areas where the whale were. We were able to get exactly who was fishing in that area. We were able to get phone calls out to them. And the Marine Patrol was able to organize a meeting within a day. The fishermen there organized a response, talked with the Marine Patrol, came up with a proposal as far as dropping an end line. Can't say exactly how many people were able to get out there. It was the worst time of year to be out there and trying to drop an end line. But the fact is that Maine fishermen took a proactive stance when they knew the whales were there, and we were able to engage in a constructive conversation. None of those whales, 96 whales, quarter of the population, there was a fair amount of gear in the area. None of those whales have been spotted with any gear on them since then. They did their thing. They went back into Mass Bay. did their spring thing, and off they've gone. So, coming back to ropeless technology. I think if we're going to avoid the large-scale closures that the feds are apt to do because of they can't respond in a timely manner, and they can't, and they go to the worst-case scenario, and they're bound by, they can only respond in like a 30-day federal notice. They just don't have the authority. I think the way forward is to take the example of what happened off of Jeffries last winter. And if we have whales in an area, then to respond accordingly to it. There were 0 whales in that area this winter. So if the feds, let's say, had baked in a plan and said like, okay, Jeffrey's gonna be a problem, we're going to do this in that area. 0 whales were there this year. I would rather say, okay, we're seeing whales move up into that area. If we've gotta do something, then we start to move. We do it quickly, we do it, in a defined area, and then we move on. And fishermen are engaged in that right from the start. We passed, or the legislature passed legislation that we had submitted that gives the Department of Emergency authority to close areas in the case of unusual aggregations of marine mammals. So we now have the authority, if we wanted to, we could close an area. Closing an area doesn't always eliminate the problem, because you're forcing people to move gear out of an area, and then you are creating, like, here's a box. you've got
Everyone
gear in
goes
it.
to one spot.
You're gonna go out of the area, and now you've moved the risk that was in that box, and you've moved that risk outside of the box, likely on the edge of that box. And so, as a regulator, what's the next response gonna be? Well, that's more risk right there, so we're gonna have to make the box bigger. Right, because now you wanna like give yourself a more of a buffer, okay? So what happened last winter with guys dropping an end line, and I think this is where like the thread of ropeless is in my head right now. And I know that there's a lot of pushback on ropeless right now, a lot, and I feel it. If you have an area, let's call it a box, that has some whales in there, and you're asking guys to reduce, we have to, as our plan, we have to reduce the risk to whales in that area. Dropping an end line, your risk isn't cut in half immediately, done. Moving that gear and leaving those end lines on, you've just moved that risk outside of that box. It's good, it's outside of the box, but it's still there.
Them whales don't stay in that box.
Exactly, so we have to be adaptive to that. So the other thing where ropeless could be helpful in that is we could say, look, we're gonna do a 2-week closure in this box. If people want to, here is the technology to do an end line, one of those time release, come back in 2 weeks, buoy pops up, and you guys continue on. Did you lose 2 weeks of fishing? Yes. Did you have to go out in the middle of the winter and try to hustle gear out of a box, only to move it back in 2 weeks later? No. And so is that the solution? I don't know, but that's kind of where my thinking, if we're gonna throw out ropeless technology as an option or as a tool, then there may be consequences of doing that down the line. And so I'm trying to like walk this line of, I agree, we are nowhere near an application of ropeless fishing right now. Total agreement with that.
Because the other fact too is, what's that stuff gonna cost?
Mhm.
I mean, as it is, our trap pile's anywhere from $100,000 to $150,000 to replace them.
Yep.
But the
And-
bigger
Easy
question,
enough.
the bigger question
And
here.
if we say we give you gear, but we don't give you gear, then we've picked winners and we've picked losers. And that's a real problem, like, I have a real issue with that as well, so.
So we're
Allison.
talking about whale entanglements, which is, what is the percentage that's actually happened?
Without knowing the exact numbers, but I think 80% of whales show signs of entanglement.
But from Maine lobster gear, where's the
can't tell.
data that shows that we have such a risk that we're willing to upset the cart of a multi-million-dollar industry for buoys that haven't been tested to even say, you can't say for sure that if you throw ropeless in, and on just even what you just talked about, what happened out with all the whales and how fast the response was, you can't say that ropeless is not gonna entangle a whale. And we don't even do it now. I've never even heard of a whale, I don't know that I've even heard of entanglement with Maine gear since I've been in this industry, correct?
They had one a couple of years ago.
Yeah, we had one in 23 or 24.
So
that-
one in like 30 years. So we're
One
willing,
in 20, yeah.
so we're willing to upset and make this whole big deal over one entanglement in 20 years.
Well, another way to look at that, Allison, to get to the same point of your question, is if the main fishery is 90% of the end lines along the east coast, which is approximately what I think it's found to be, then there shouldn't be any whales. How can a fishery as large as the Maine lobster fishery persist? There has to be a mismatch. Or the whale, like, they all would be entangled and, all would, suffer, accordingly. And so that's really where the whole idea is, where's the gear, where's the fishery, and where are the whales? And you're trying to minimize that overlap.
But we do already.
And
So it's like, I wish
that's the
that we
point
would
of-
focus sometimes though, like, one of the things that I really would love to see DMR do is like you just talked about with the dots and about how you see geographically, they're moving away from the coast, about, where the fishermen are. And what does DMR do to ensure that fishing thrives? Because that's what your business thrives on. DMR thrives on having fishermen, right?
I think,
So what does DMR do to help, and this is that conversation I've had with you before, which I didn't get to have with you that day, was Garrison's 13. Why are we making it so hard for a kid to have a license? We make it really hard. I have to pay someone to get his license and to do his hours, because it's such a pain in the butt. And every year, until this year, since been paying someone to do it, is that he didn't get in his reports of his 12 lobsters that he caught or whatever that the state needs to know about. So it's like those things that are like hindering, we're never gonna grow this industry with the way that it's so over-regulated even to kids. And then on top of that, before we move forward, is that I have a girl applying at the restaurant that wants to work for me. And she wants to work for me because she's 15. She was told that she couldn't go with my father-in-law fishing because she's too young to go fishing. She called the department, my mother-in-law called the department, and I don't know why she did that anyway, probably just trying to make sure that she was good to have her on the boat, and she wants to go fishing, but the department told her that she is not allowed to be on the boat at 15 years old.
okay, so a lot to unpack there, Allison.
Okay.
First and foremost, what are we trying to do with whales? I think the objective with where the state is, and that's all of us, is to keep this fishery as close to status quo as it is right now. And to minimize the impacts to the fishery, period.
Agreed.
If we deconstruct this fishery to save whales, we've saved whales and destroyed a coastal economy. So, like, we have to find that balance, and that is, everything that we're doing is to try to keep this fishery in as close proximity to what it looks like today going forward.
Same as this side of the table.
Yeah.
We have the same goal.
So, transitioning to reporting requirements, pain in the ass, understood. You've found the way to kind of pay your way out of that requirement, and
Which
that's
a lot of people will not be able to do that.
But a lot of people are doing that too. I mean, that's one of the options.
But you do see that you start pitting people that have and people that don't have.
Mhm.
And a lot of fishermen don't have.
Yep.
They don't have the mouth, to speak up or call or talk to the right person. They're just gonna be like, I'm defeated, and then they don't do it. And that is where we are killing young. We killed the old fishermen with all the reporting and everything's turned to the computer. We killed the older and we killed a lot of the younger generation, even though we think they love electronics. They don't love it to do reporting. Because it isn't easy. It's not as easy. Have you gone on and looked like you were a 12-year-old yet? Looked to apply for a license?
Well, that's a good question, Allison. I'll ask my 12-year-old to do that.
Sure.
I will. Yeah, no, I think that's a
And then
that's
to
a fair
stay on,
question.
and then to stay on top of the reporting, which I'm not against, it's part of like having a job, and I understand that, but it makes it such an obstacle, I feel like. And then, if you've ever had to do reporting or dealing with the state, man, we suck. We're so slow. The systems don't keep up, they fall, they kick you out, you can't get a human, it's a lot of stuff to do. It just makes it seem like the state doesn't want to be a partner in making fishermen. And then we've had a lot, Gary said when he went to vocational school, they had maritime schools. Is there a way that DMR could be helping fund some programs so we had maritime in vocational? I mean, is that not a skill that we would want to be pushing in Maine? We want to be pushing electronic or electrical and all that stuff, but why aren't we don't have people knowing how to mend nets and do all the stuff that, even when I was young, that I was doing when I was working on traps and stuff. So is there other ways? And I'm
Yeah.
hoping that
Okay,
DMR
so-
is looking into some of the ways to be trying to help grow the fishing industry, because it is hurting a little bit.
Yep. The final point about labor, child labor, that was a very
big one.
unwanted conversation of this spring that got pretty wild for a few weeks there.
I know I took my kids.
What's that?
I know I took my kids.
I mean, Garrison's 12, so I know that's not too young. I mean, he has a license, so you can't be too young to go.
So it all comes down to, I would have liked to know in the question that, that 15-year-old asked the Department of Labor. This is not a DMR thing. It's, if she had applied my 15-year-old son to work at the YMCA when he was 14, he had to submit a worker's permit application, because that was a defined employer-employee relationship, and that has to get approved. If he had submitted to Fish with You to the Department of Labor as an employer and an employee relationship, they would have denied that, because fishing is a hazardous occupation, and it's defined as that. If that 15-year-old had said, I'm an independent contractor because I show up at the boat the captain says to be there at 5 o'clock, I'm there at 5 o'clock, I've got my boots, I've got my oil gear, I've got my gloves, and I go to and my duties are to band, and I'm a really good bander, and when we land 100 pounds, I get a percentage of the catch, and when we land 1,000 pounds, we get a percentage of the catch. The Department of Labor would say, independent contractor, no problem. Your son who's got a license at 12, independent contractor, no problem. It's all about that employer-employee relationship.
That makes sense how you explained it, but it didn't make sense how how they were told that she couldn't, so, okay, that
And-
makes, but it doesn't make sense that that's how that's the relationship between the marine world and the
It's like
labor
you feel like
world.
you have to trick them, like, oh.
Yeah, I know.
Because they gotta go before they get out of high school or college to get their license through
To
the
get their
sponsorship
hours,
program.
Yeah.
Or they go on the
23.
waiting list.
Yep.
Just a point of order for everyone, there is a large meeting happening at 6:30, so we got
Yeah.
about 5 minutes to wrap up.
Oh my God, there's
guess-
there's a way out.
Carl's like, thank God, it's over.
Holy moly, this is,
Hey, Carl, I've got a quick question.
please.
Whoa. Are you done, Allison?
Yeah, no, that was.
She is now.
That was my big one tonight, was the whole,
Okay,
The
go
license
ahead,
thing.
Bill,
I
I'm
was just, I
sorry.
wanted to follow up on the dropping the end line.
Yeah.
Do the feds do they know about that? Like, did they, I mean,
Yeah,
that sound like that
it's
worked?
against-
Are they
it's
like, that's a
against
great
federal
plan?
regulations to do that. And they weren't particularly happy that the department publicized dropping an end line, because it's against federal regs. When you're offshore, you gotta have high flyer on both ends.
Yeah.
And,
main road.
yeah, we did it. Massachusetts and New Hampshire followed suit. There was a federal hearing at the New England Council where they were talking about, it got embroiled in the ropeless gear conversation, but one of the options in that public hearing was to have alternative gear strategies, of which one of them could have been dropping an end line. So,
Samantha, do you have anything?
I'm just appreciative of you coming here. I am. It means a lot to us. It does.
Definitely.
It shows a lot of who you are as well.
well, I would just say, again, you guys are doing something. And I think you need to be talking with other towns about what you're doing, because, I always think that Stonington is doing pretty well. And I grew up spending my summers on Isle of Ho, just outside of Stonington, which, it was really fun to go to Stonington and say, hey, guys, I actually think Harpswell is a little bit ahead of you on this, because there is something here that you guys are doing that I just would encourage you to keep going. And, David, like the voice that you were talking about, like if an individual gets lost, there is something that there is a power of a group to respond, that sometimes can, speak louder than an individual voice.
Yeah.
So,
Can I add, I'm a little bit Susie Cream Cheese, but
I have never heard that.
I've never, can you
That is
explain
a-
that? Because I've never heard that
That is
either.
the first.
Cream cheese.
I was on a call today and I said, well, that's rarer than a hen's tooth. And people were like, how old are you? So please.
I don't think it's age related. It's just naive, I just think that you've said several times the uniqueness here, what's going on here. And I think it speaks to the people, obviously, these really incredibly smart people, but to the town as well, the receptivity of the town, the concern about aquaculture. The town held workshops, then the aquaculture task force, which became the Fisheries Committee, which you've been wanting forever.
That's been a good addition to the leadership for us too, I feel like,
Well,
since
true.
he's become to the leadership for the town, has kind of elevated us a bit too, which has been helpful, but yes, I
Yeah.
agree.
And there are a lot of great towns, but I think there's something special here that makes this happen. The people and the people who are the town.
I mean, you have some towns that are putting in moratoriums for aquaculture, right? I think the conversation with the maps, like, that's like a compromise there,
Yeah.
right? Like
That was our goal, that's why we did it.
Yeah,
Was
and-
let's get the
Well, we're
information.
fishermen, we don't wanna be telling people not to be
Yeah.
fishing or not to be working, that
Yeah.
shouldn't be the goal of any town, it should just be starting to have a conversation when you have concerns with anything, that's how it should work.
And
Prevent problems.
I think if I was an applicant and I went through and saw those maps and had an iterative conversation of like, if not here, then maybe here or something, I just think that's a really elegant way to have a conversation, so.
I have easy one for you, hopefully. At the Zone F Council, you talked about Menhaden, what's the word I'm looking for? Moratorium, not moratorium, in, out, some people getting out, some getting in, whatever the phrase would be. And you said,
Ratios, yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
and so it was good with all the ratios and all that, but you said applicants will be chosen from east to west.
Yeah, so,
I said, camera didn't see you roll your eyes, but I did. So my question is, I'm not gonna nail you down on this, but how, why was that can you tell me why that decision was made instead of first applied would be the first available?
okay,
The
so
applicant who applied
thankfully, this had nothing to do with the department.
Okay, good.
So this was an entirely part of the sausage making of the Maine State Legislature. And trying to craft, and I'm sure you can talk about this, of like trying to craft a path forward in a divisive issue. And so the bill that came forward for Menhaden, which we testified against, because it would have added another 20 licenses, even though those 20 licenses had activity in the fishery, had a history in the fishery. The legislature before, twice, had said, we're putting a date of qualification, whatever it was, that had already gone through. So this bill was to change the criteria that would have added 20 fishermen in. There's like 360 licenses plus or minus right now. And we have put in limited entry, but we haven't put in like, what does that mean actually? So I think the compromise in this situation was the bill came from a legislature from down east, who had a very specific fisherman that had, let's say it was a 20,000 pound criteria. He had like 19,900 pounds. He was right there. And so the legislature was very much so trying to respond to his constituent and try to find a solution. So the bill went like ping pong back and forth. In the end, the kind of compromise solution was, we're going to tell the department to let licenses go down to about 300 to 350. That's like the cap now for licenses. And that will probably be there in about a year. And then once we get there, then on a one-to-one basis, we are gonna let licenses in. The first 20 off the list are gonna be those that would have been captured by that. And then as a final little, like, French kiss at the end, was to do it in an east-west, way.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what that means, like, is it mailbox, is it town, is it, like, there's actually, like,
Yeah.
zip code, and then if there's multiple people in the same town, then like, how do you figure this out? Like, I've never heard of anything like that happen. But in the end, like, in 5 years, we'll have an exit ratio, we'll have a cap on licenses, and hopefully we'll have some predictability for those that are gonna participate.
That's good to know, because I was at the Zone F meeting, and everybody's going, did he just say what I thought he said? And of course, at the Zone A meeting, they're all going, yeah, right, right?
Exactly,
So,
exactly,
So
yeah.
we're kind of like, and then the next thing I knew, you had to run off, so.
Yeah,
I
and
wanted to ask.
I think we all wanna do like good policy.
Right.
And when someone goes in with George's bill to get what George wants at the expense of, good policy, that doesn't feel great. And so I think that this was a crafted solution that was
Yep.
trying to thread a needle, so.
George, about 30 seconds or
Yeah,
so.
yeah, okay. So lastly, we got way off track, but, so are we able to email the department with questions?
Yep.
Yeah, you can email me directly, carl.wilson@maine.gov.
It's going in the minutes, okay.
Or, there is an email, that goes to my assistant, and quite frankly, you'll probably have a better response, because the amount of emails I get lost.
Yep.
And so, and that's that, DMR_commissioner's office, so.
So, that's good to know, because we get hung up here a lot
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
needs to go to DMR. So, thank you very much for your time,
Yeah.
Commissioner,
Thank you, guys.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.